of the year. He's here to share insights on how to make money and actually keep it. Please welcome Nathan Rigney. Thanks for joining me. Good to see you again.
Hey, Daniel. How are you?
Mate, wonderful. We're doing numbers before. You're the numbers guy. I'm terrible at maths. But it's probably been close to a decade since we first met.
Yeah. I remember the first time I met you, you were doing this push-pull experiment to get a point across. That was my first interaction with you, and it's still at the back of the head there somewhere. So I couldn't tell you too much more about that, but I remember it being impressive.
I think for all of us in life, we learn our skills and then we've got to start to develop our talents. And what I've found is a lot of us try to push so hard to achieve our goals. And sometimes the more we push, the harder it is to get to the end point. And sometimes we've got to learn to let things come to us. And in sound healing, what we do in sound healing is we can either use free resonance or what's called forced resonance. Free resonance is where you find a frequency, you expose it to the body, and the body naturally aligns to the external frequency. So, for example, if your optimal brain waves or the brain should operate at a frequency of 85 hertz, if you put a frequency of 85 hertz and expose it to the brain will align to that healthy frequency. But what people do is they say, I don't want my brain operating at 85 megahertz. I want it to be at 90 megahertz. So they get a higher frequency and they try to force it into the brain. But the brain's like, this is too much too soon. The frequency's too high. And the brain goes, and it burns out. And a lot of times we try so hard to achieve something. We're trying to force it. But most people get to a stage where they go, oh, fuck it, I'm not doing this anymore. They tear up the paper, they have a little hissy fit, and they quit. And within moments, it all happens. So this old experiment of pushing and pulling, we've got to know how much to force it, and we've got to know how much to just let it come to us.
Yeah, I think in life we've all experienced that at some point. And it's like, it was like, people who just try too hard to be something they're not. Like, be yourself. And it's, hard trying to be something you're not. I hate the expression fake it till you make it. I know this has got nothing to do with numbers, but I think it does. Because psychology is a big piece behind
people
the
fake
reason
their
why
numbers.
some people are successful and some are not, right? But like, fake it till you make it, or not being who you are. And I remember, years ago, I learned, I was in my mid-20s, not everyone's going to like you. Right? You can't be everyone. You're not going to be everyone's cup of tea. And until you get that and accept that, you're just going to be this life of faking. So I think just be who you are. Don't force it. You still got to work towards things, right? But don't force it and just be yourself. And you'll have your fans, you'll have your haters, but hopefully you'll have a bunch of people who really just absolutely love you.
We're talking a few moments ago about these the special needs brains, the spectrum brains. Sometimes we just don't like people and we don't even know why we don't like them. I was at Costco with Ninny, my wife. We'd just done our shopping. I hopped in my car and I was being polite. I was just letting all the traffic come past. And then there was a white car and it was going really slow. And I thought, I'll be patient, I'll be polite. And then I looked through the window and I didn't like the facial expression on the lady in front of me in the car. And I said, fuck it, I'm out of here. And then he said, what are you doing? Why are you so aggressive? I said, I saw the look on her face and I don't like it. I hate her. I got no idea who she is, but in my spectrum brain is going, you don't like that person. Cut him off.
My wife would describe that as the 0 to 100 of emotional irregulation. That is something I had to learn myself, how I can all of a sudden just be like, "Argh." Luckily now I can see when that happens, and then I can deal with it before it becomes a bigger problem. But that came through, as we were talking about before, it came through a journey of self-reflection, self-awareness, working on myself. And I feel as though a lot of people don't do that. They're not stopping to work on themselves. They're not thinking about themselves. It's like almost like it's a crime to actually put yourself first.
Well, you were saying fake it till you make it. If you got to fake it till you make it, you're being somebody else. It's an illusion. It's a mask. It's a facade. And you start to do that and you feel like an imposter.
Mm.
You start to feel that, oh my gosh, somebody's going to catch me. I'm going to be caught. Somebody's going to knock on the door and say, you've been faking it. You're busted. You're on a Current Affairs, Sydney's worst shopkeeper. I'm going to get exposed. Rather than faking it till you make it, another way to approach it is act as if now. So you look to the future and you say to yourself, okay, I want to own a business and I want to have $1 million in revenues each year. Who do I have to become to earn $1 million per year? You list out the behaviors. You list out the motivators. You list out the skill sets. You list out the talents. And then you start to develop each one of those. A person who wants to become a millionaire has to act like a millionaire today. You can't say, well, when I get the millionaire mind, then I'll become a millionaire. No. You got to get the dollar air mind. You got to master a dollar.
Well, I mean, I think the biggest problem is that society, we have, we've become accustomed to instant, okay, you think about when we were kids, right? We wanted to watch something on TV. It came on a certain time of the week. The best thing that you and I could probably do, and you're a little bit older than me, so, I'm not sure when the VCR came around, but you would record it, right? And that was probably the best, but you had that once a week. Now, if you look at our children, they can watch whatever show they want at any time, and they have so much choice. So put that into real life scenarios. There's a whole lot of other instant gratification or instant there. Oh, we're just there. So that journey of working towards it or waiting is not known. And if that's all they know from an early age, when they come to adulthood, well, who knows what that's going to look like? But exactly to your point, you need to work backwards and go, well, what are all the things I need to do to get to that point? Because it's not going to come on a silver platter. It's just not going to arrive and like, here you go, you're a millionaire now. Your best chance of doing that is going and buying some lottery tickets. But the odds of you winning the lottery are so slim that you're better off actually spending more time and effort in working on those things and working backwards and going, what are the things that I need to then get to that point?
My wife likes the lottery. And here in Taiwan, luck is a very important thing. And so they talk about the money god. And they say, we're going to pray to the money god. And we pray that he comes to the north of the island. But then the money god's got a path of his own and he goes to the south of the island. And the people in the north say, this motherfucker money god, he went to the south again. And my wife says to me, should we get a ticket? And I say, absolutely 100%. Doesn't matter how much you want to spend. I'll give you the money if you can guarantee me 100% that we're going to win. Oh, you're ruining my joy. I said, no, I don't want to ruin your joy. I want you to win, but you just got to guarantee me that I won't lose any money. And then she realizes that she shouldn't be wasting her money on the tickets. And I think a lot of us live in a false hope that we're just miraculously going to make $1 million without a plan. But we know it intuitively. You can't get there. You got to have a plan. You got to have a path to follow. And just because you want to, it doesn't mean you can. And I've been there before. I was working with Emirates Airline based in the Middle East, and I decided I'm going to become a coach. That's what I'm going to do. After I finish this career, I'm going to become a coach. But I had to transition. So I started to acquire all the knowledge, all the skill, develop the attitude. And I also set a goal. And the goal was to earn $100,000 a year being a coach whilst I was full-time employed.
Mm.
And I thought in my optimistic brain that this would be possible. But in the part of me that's realistic, I was like, this is not possible. I'm not earning $100,000 doing what I'm doing now. What the hell is this? The first year it didn't happen. But by the second year I said, well, there must be a problem with the goal. The goal mustn't be big enough. It mustn't be hairy enough. It mustn't be audacious enough. Maybe I've got to apply the 10x rule. Maybe I shouldn't be saying 100,000. Maybe it should be $1 million. So the goal goes up. The next year I'm just disappointed. By the third year, it's like, well, I'm not even going to bother setting a goal because I've never achieved it. But there was no plan. It was just a hope and a wish.
If I had to then reflect on a lot of, so being an accountant, so I run my own accounting practice and have done so for in the 12th year of running an accounting practice. I've been an accountant since I was 19. And so I'm 44 this year. So do the maths. Well, you said you didn't
25.
do maths, but our viewers, I'm sure, can do some numbers. And if they can't, there's a calculator. But like, I don't even know what I was talking about now. It's completely lost my mind. But
I'm still doing the maths.
Yeah, still doing that. That's the problem. Yeah, no, like I've completely lost what I was talking about. My train of thought there.
I was telling you about my ridiculous goals.
Your ridiculous goals.
Said, as an accountant,
so
since
all these
age 19.
clients I've seen over the years, right? Thank you for that. So all these clients over the years, honestly, the reason they're not profitable is there's just no real plan. How many businesses I've seen where what they've done is they've really gone from, I guess, being that worker, that employee, right, who's got that skill in that trade, to seeing what the boss is doing, or the flexibility of running my own business. It sounds like a great idea. I go and speak to the accountant, talk about, what structure, how do I set it up, what I need to do, tax compliance, blah, 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 blah. But there's no real thought about like going, well, what is it to be a business owner? Because no one taught you when you did your formal education on that trade or skill, or maybe it's just from experience, right? No one taught you how to run business, because why would they teach you that? The whole idea of you being there an employee is you're trading your time for your skill, right? They don't care about you running a business. That's not what you're there for. If you're there, you're a chef, you're there to make the bacon and the eggs for breakfast or whatever other meal you're prepping, right? That is your job. But then this whole brain fart idea, and you see this again and again. I've worked for multiple people before I worked for myself, and even in my own practice, I've seen it. People start businesses with absolutely no plan. They start business of this beautiful idea of work for myself, the flexibility and all the rest of it that goes with it. And I've got a business. Yeah, I'm going to do that. Now, the reality is that depending on what sort of business you got, you might be in there still doing the same job you did for yourself as an employee. But then when it becomes bigger and the entity grows, your role changes as well, right? You're no longer being that person who's you're not the person who's actually now, carrying that output and then selling that for money. Now you're now dealing with other things. You've got HR, you're dealing with the accounting, you're dealing with, you're putting out fires here or there. This client's made a complaint. Oh, I've got to create this system process. Maybe you never heard of that before. But as it grows, you're no longer there doing what you started with. And go back to what I said originally. No one teaches you how to be a business owner. And so you're in this world of absolute loss. And when you then go back to this dream of how good it's going to be to work for myself, it's not so great. But you can turn that around. I mean, that is the good news, right? It's not all doom and gloom. You can turn it around, but it comes back to everything in life. It comes back to what plans have you put in place so that you can best, achieve maybe the goals that you've got. Maybe you've got a goal that's not written down. Maybe it's far there in the back of your head. But whatever it is that the reason you started that business, what is it you're trying to achieve, right? How, if we plan for it, then we can get to that point where you are actually successful.
Nobody teaches you how to prepare for the 2 a.m. heart attack that most business people have 2 or 3 times a week. Nobody teaches you that most of the things that you do never work.
Mm.
And so a lot of our emotional energy gets caught up in the learning of how to become a business person. You know, what does a business person actually have to deal with? Tons of disappointment, disappointment after disappointment. It's like
I mean,
you've got a wonderful book over your shoulder called The E-Myth Revisited. And Michael
yeah,
Gerber
that's
talks about the three eyes of the business owner. And you got the technician, and we all start as the technician. But you quickly learn that you've got to manage the business, and that's a whole nother set of talents. You then got to be a visionary, and that's a whole set of talents to look out into the future.
what's interesting,
So much to
Daniel,
learn.
is that a lot of business podcasts. I reckon that book would be the most referred to piece of text literature that is referred to as go and read that. If the one thing you took from this podcast today would be, if you're in business, no matter where you are on that journey, read that book. And if you don't like reading, get the ebook. If you don't have time for an ebook, go on the ChatGPT and ask for a summary of the book. Right? There's many ways to learn. It doesn't have to be, if you're not a, I find it hard sitting down reading a book. I can't concentrate. So I do ebooks. It's the best way to do it. I can get my fitness in at the same time. But biggest tip, listen to that book, read that book, get the book.
A lot of us have energy. And in my work, we talk about social health. And in social health, the jobs that we enjoy, we get energized by. So, for example, if you're a technician like me, today I'm in the role of a coach. And whenever I do coaching, I'm buzzing. I got a ton of energy. But now ask me to sit down and do accounts. Where did the energy go? Somebody stole all of my energy, and now I'm procrastinating. I'll never procrastinate when it comes to coaching, but now I've got to sit down and think, oh my gosh, I'm going to get busy. I'm going to have another coffee. I'm going to scroll through social media.
Hmm.
And so we've also got to have enough energy for all these different parts of the business. And we don't learn it overnight. We learn it over time. And we should be modeling. You know, you were talking about Tony Robbins before. One of the most important lessons that Tony Robbins shares with the world is to model successful people. Go out and find somebody who's already achieved your goal and then do what they do.
Yeah.
You know, that's not doing it the hard way. In Australia, we're teased at school, you're such a tryhard. But there's also a philosophy of try easy.
Yeah. Or you're told, oh, you're a copycat.
Hmm?
And on that with the Tony Robbins, I mean, I heard there's another really good podcaster by the name of Ty Lopez. I don't know if you've seen any of his content, but I saw him in person and he said, like, don't be afraid, just copy it. Don't reinvent the wheel. Go and do the same thing. Don't, and I think, yeah, go back to those childhood, I guess, you know, go back to your childhood and look at the ideologies that we've been put in our head, all right, from an early age, that now we, subconsciously believe in, that are not really true.
Mm.
And that sort of stuff, like this, and this is what I think a lot of stuff that I've worked on myself is really questioning those beliefs from a long time ago. Is it true? No.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
There's so much about money that's negative in our head. Don't talk about money. We're not rich people.
Oh, look,
It's okay for them. They're self-employed. It's okay for them. They're employed. Money doesn't grow on trees. Your grandparents weren't rich. Remember what happened to your uncle? He tried business, failed, lost the house, lost it all. Be careful. Don't get too big for your boots. You're too ambitious, son. All of that programming.
Mm.
You got to get aware of that.
Yeah, I mean, I've done a few programs in the past, and I do remember there was one program I did individual, like more on personal finances, and I went to a workplace. And the reason I was asked there was the people had this business, they would pay their staff on a Thursday, right, and then by Monday or Tuesday, a lot of their staff had no money. This is week after week, all the time. They couldn't go to a fortnightly pay run because they would have a week of staff members not having any money. And it wasn't compulsory, but it was offered to all about 40 staff that if they could turn up every week, and I would teach them through just some really simple strategies they could turn around their life goals, personal goals, finance goals, right? And I do remember one guy in particular, the nicest guy, like so many limitations because exactly what you're saying there. His parents' parents always lived in a caravan. So therefore, I'm never going to be able to do the same thing. But then, his bosses would be like, look, I want you to go and get your trade, go and get that, because then we can pay you more money. Pay you more money, We're not going to do that until you've done that bit of work. But there was a deep belief system there that he wouldn't be able to change. He can't, I can't do this, can't do that. There was always a lot of reasons as to why I couldn't move forward. And yeah, it was quite sad for him. And I did feel for him in being in that there. But I mean, ultimately, he needs to then step away and have that courage, right? Because it's fearing, fear to kind of do something. Because as you said before, like it'd be a whole lot of people that he's surrounded by, those friends, family, going, "What are you doing this for? Why bother?
Mm.
It's not going to work for you. It's not work for me.
Play it safe.
Play it safe."
Did you watch the news? There's a crisis.
There's always going to be a crisis. Look at the markets; they're up and down like a roller coaster. There's days that are great and days that are horrible. But take the opportunity, take the chance. But if you imagine, like, if you have people around you always at you going, "Oh, what are you doing that for?" But I think as well, like even I mean, a friend of mine wanted a career change. What are you got to do to make that career change? You've been in the same job for 20 years. And he said, look, if I stay there for another, so he was there for 17 years, right? And he said, if I stay another 3 years, I get long service leave. But it's like super long service leave. I get extra leave every year I'm here and I'm accruing. But he hates his job. Turns up, does this week after week because he's accepted that's the normal.
Mm.
So I said, okay, you hate your job. I said, well, why are you staying there? I said, like, because of long service leave. But I said, look, here's the thing with the long service leave. It keeps accruing. Like, after 10 years, it keeps accruing. And you could leave tomorrow and it's all good. Oh, but it's super leave. And I said, well, okay, but I get more if I stay till 20 years. So I said, okay, well, what's the opportunity cost? If we were to calculate how much are you going to get by leaving today versus how much you're going to get by leaving in 3 years' time, what is it? What's the number? Oh, I don't know. Okay, well, do you think we should don't know what the number is to then quantify whether it's really worth another 3 years of hating your job? So okay, so let's ignore that. Let's just also talk about this comes back to planning. Okay, so what job do you want? Oh, I want this dream job. It's all my dream job. Okay, great. What do you got to do to get there? Oh, well, you need to know someone in the organization to get the job and this and that. Okay, well, what else do you need to do so you highlight yourself more to that person in the organization? What training do you need to do? What courses do you undertake? Oh, I don't know. Well, don't you think you should find out? Because in 3 years, maybe what you could do is whilst you're hating your job, maybe you could train for that new role. So in 3 years' time, maybe you get that bonus. Maybe you get that dream job. Or maybe, you have a look now and quantify how much that leave is for the next 3 years. And you go, nah, it's not worth it. Maybe you go, hey, I was going in this direction, this lane over here, but maybe I want to go far left or far right. I don't know. But until you go and sit down and spend that time to look at it, nothing's going to change. But the reality is, and what I explained to him was, I can guarantee you're going to do nothing because you understand where you're at now. You understand what you got. You understand as much as you might like or hate it, there's parts you hate. You understand what you hate, and the reality is the unknown, because you might not achieve it and get there, and so therefore it's safer to do what you know, because you can never fail if you never give it a go. And that also means you can't win either. But I said to him, I said, like, why don't we redefine what failure means? It means that I said, well, failure to me means that I failed, but then I learn from it and then I go again. But it's interesting in that the way what we tell ourselves and then unpacking those beliefs. And it's coming back to, once again, I think we've talked about a lot about courage to actually, step out and step out into the unknown. And I think really if you want to do that, you got to be around people who really want to support you and be that person that's going to encourage you instead of pull you down. But yeah, it's I don't know. Do you see that much, Daniel?
I see people getting comfortable in the uncomfortable. Well, there could be a worse job. The economy could be worse. I could be earning less, but they get comfortable with where they're at. And they stop dreaming, they stop hoping, they stop wishing. And that's environment. Environment is a tough thing. And if the environment's not helping you, it's going to hurt you. And sometimes just getting out of one environment, it could be the people. You're mentioning you went to Tony Robbins' event. You go there and you realize that, oh my gosh, there's people who are more successful than me doing the same thing. They've been doing it for less time, but they got more results. Oh my gosh, maybe it's possible. But you've got to constantly get out of the comfort zone. And that's uncomfortable to do. But once you do it, it becomes easier over time. And in Australia, we tend to be more half glass full type people. We're more skeptical, we're more doubting. And we'll say to others, oh, maybe you should think about it. Maybe you should put your family first. Don't risk the inheritance. But we start to talk to people in America and they come out with new ideas and they're more glass half full type people.
Yeah.
Now, it could be possible. There's people who have done it before. People are doing it right now. But you've got to get out of the environment and to see what's possible. I've lived in the United Arab Emirates. And I went there and my mind and my eyes were opened because this small part of the world with no healthy soil, terrible temperature, lots of sand, was this city exploding out of the desert. Towers being built every single day. Businesses opening up every single day. Supercars on every single road. Rolexes on every single hand. Diamonds on every finger. And you look around and you say, it's happening. It's happening right here in front of me and it's not being faked. People are coming over here. They're starting businesses, achieving goals that they were never able to achieve in a different environment. And I've seen that part of the world and I lived there for 6 years. And what happens is once you get out of the old environment into a new environment, you start to stretch. And if anybody's ever had an elastic band, if you stretch an elastic band just once, it'll never return back to its same dimension. And the same thing with your mind. You get out of your comfort zone once and you start to spend time with different people once, it'll stretch your mind. And as soon as you go back to your old comfort zone, you'll feel the resistance. You'll say, oh, this is not where I want to be. But you just got to do it once.
Yeah, no, that's right. Definitely, 100%. That's exactly right. I think as well, like, it's probably accepting of change as well. I mean, look at if I'm 44 this year, the friends that I have now versus the friends I had 10 years ago, maybe 10 years prior to that, and 10 years prior to that, they're all different. And what it is it's accepting that over time, you change, they change, and naturally, you start gravitating to those who serve you best in that interaction. It's interesting that you sometimes see that some people hang on to friendships just for the sake of we've always been friends since high school. I think it's okay to sort of look at it and be a little bit more self-serving and go, well, this isn't working for me, and letting things go. It's not to say that, hey, I'm, we're done and dusted. So you're my number one, or you're on my enemies list. It's just that people grow apart, and it's okay.
Hmm.
And it's looking at the bigger picture of yourself and going, well, what's best serving me? So yeah.
Comfort zones are the biggest killer of success. And the comfort zone is based on homeostasis. And you're a dad, I'm a dad. And when our babies have a fever, their temperature goes up. So let's say the average temperature is 37. If the temperature goes up by 10%, the baby gets into a hyperprexic state. They start to cook. And what we want to do is we want to naturally cool them down. Do we throw a bucket of ice water on them? Do we throw them in the pool? No. We just put room temperature water, luke temperature water, and just cool them down ever so slowly. Where do we get them back to? Back to homeostasis, from 41 degrees back down to 37. Sometimes our babies get a chill and they start to cool down. Anybody who's been in the surf in Cronulla in summertime knows that sometimes the water's really cold in summer and you're freezing. So you run out and you jump back into the car, and what do you want to do? You just want to warm back up, back into the comfort zone. Once you get back into the comfort zone, you go, I feel so good. And the comfort zone for the human body is 10%. So if we're making these little incremental changes by less than 10% at a time, we don't feel the resistance so much. But most people, was like when I set my goal to earn $100,000 a year, it was so far out of my comfort zone that the moment I took my first step, I said, this is not going to happen. This is absolutely impossible. Straight back to the comfort zone. But once I said, I think the first thing should be is for me to get my first customer. How much am I going to charge? Nothing. But I need a customer.
You need a believer.
I saw my first customer.
Yeah.
And then I thought I'll get my second customer, but this time maybe they'll buy me a coffee. And I remember my second customer bought me a coffee, and that was a win. And then the third customer bought me coffee and cake, and I got fat. And then by the fourth customer, I said, well, you got to pay me $25. And once I got to $25, once I said, this is how much I'm earning. And I've just I've equaled my hourly rate. It becomes believable. And then customer by customer, I just moved up $5 or $10 because I had to believe that I could deliver on that money. And as I delivered on the money, I had more confidence. And it was just little bit by little bit. And once I had that track record of success, I left my job and said, well, now I want to earn this amount per client. Stabilized there, grew again. And I kept growing, but it was always within my comfort zone. And if I went too far out of that, there was too much stress. And once the stress hits, you can't think correctly and you stop acting. So we've got to make incremental improvements. And if you just grow it a little bit per time, just 1% per day. If you improve your performance by 1% per day, you won't even notice the improvement at the end of the day. You won't notice it by the end of the week. But within a year, you'll be 37 times better. That's massive growth.
I think the big thing for a lot of people who want to start a business or are in business is it's about having some really good, strong foundations as well. Foundations are really important. So you've talked about like those little improvements. And the thing is that when we improve and the business gets bigger and you get more popular, you need really good, strong foundations. Because if we don't have strong foundations, what's going to happen is all that effort you put into in those 1% is eventually going to fall over. And if I look at a lot of businesses, they don't have those foundations, particularly, around their finances. there are a lot of business owners, they get really excited about the marketing, because marketing is exciting. Like, you're going out there selling, promoting, again, it's like almost the that journey of getting that client, or like when when you're younger and
It's the
dating
thrill of
and
the
chasing
chase.
the
It's
girls or the
chasing the
boys,
girls.
whatever
Yep.
it might be. But like, I know it's definitely girls for you, but like, it's the foundations are important. And this is what I'm saying. Like, we're going to sell more. We'll sell more. We'll do more marketing, and that will resolve our problems. Now, the problem is if you have really, if the foundations aren't strong enough to add more uh, clients or revenue on the top end, eventually that building is going to shake, right? So what I would, strongly, what I say to a lot of clients is, what, sometimes you're best to stop that marketing, turn that tap off. Still do a little bit of marketing just to let people know you're still out there and you exist, but you're better off, turning that attention from really the marketing, and then think about those foundations in your business. What are those foundations, particularly around how we manage cash? Because a lot of us, it's not interesting sitting there and doing your accounting. I mean, why do you think they put accountants and dentists in the same category? I mean, like, I I, I honestly didn't. I thought the whole stigma about accountants was completely just one thing where they just went, oh, we're just going to pick on an industry just because. Not until I went to go work for another accounting practice years ago, and they were all a bunch of sticklers that were sit in the corner and really boring people. But it's I mean, accounting numbers, it's really important part of a business, because the finances is what actually helps you deliver the end result. It's part of it. It's like, take a chair, right? It's got four legs. Well, for that chair to hold up, it needs all four legs. So same with business. It needs all four, components of, a business framework or a foundation to hold up. So, it could everything from accounting to legal, HR, marketing, those whole things together help drive it forward and, to build up. But foundations, that would be, where a lot of businesses fall down as they grow.
Mm. It's not always about how much you make. It's about how much you can keep. And I have seen businesses. I had a gentleman on my podcast, and he had generated $70 million in sales, and he was bankrupt in 9 months.
Mm.
And you think to yourself, you brought in 70 million and you're bankrupt? He didn't look at the numbers. He didn't plan for the numbers. He didn't plan for the cost of goods sold. And he was talking about the amount of marketing money that he was spending. For him to sell $1 million worth of products, he said maybe $750,000 went in just to generate leads. So he was out there bragging 70 million, 70 million. 9 months later, no foundations, just collapsed into the sand.
Yeah.
But not everybody gets good advice. And we've got to get advice from the right people. And I believe with what you're doing, you've been the profit at first agent of the year. So obviously you've got wonderful insights for people. In your 25 years, what are those foundational pieces that people are missing along the way?
I think, first of all, just having that responsibility and actually being part of that journey on the finance. Like, you can't always just outsource everything, right? Oh, I'll give the bookkeeper, it's the accountant's responsibility. Well, it's your responsibility as well to um, understand where the numbers go. But in saying that as well, I mean, not everyone's gone out and done an accounting degree. So if we throw that in, a lot of people do not understand how to read a balance sheet or a profit and loss. So you're down in the trots there. The next thing is like, well, let's talk about your behaviors. Let's talk about your behaviors and how you deal with money. Are you the type of person that just spends it as soon as you get it? Are you the type of person that never spends it, you hold on to it? So the person who's always holding on to it, well, they're afraid to invest it, and they're never going to grow their money. But the person who's spending it all, they're probably happy to invest it, but they've already spent it, so they've got no money to invest. So really, I mean, when I talk about foundations and what profit first is leveraging off what you already do. You already understand, and what a lot of business owners do to gauge their success is they look at their bank balance. So instead of reinventing the wheel and making you learn how to uh, read a profit and loss on a balance sheet, what we're going to do instead is that we want to say, well, hey, the money that comes into the business, we want to allocate it to where it needs to be. So that means that, if we think about all the cash coming in, we're going to park some over here for you to get paid as an owner. We're going to park some aside for profit, because it's important that every business should be profitable from day one. But we need to have that intention set that we are going to have profit. We're not going to just hope at the end that there's profit. Then we want to put so much aside for operating expenses. We want to have some money aside for maybe a rainy day. And then taxes, right? Taxes are a thing. Like, unfortunately, we love where we live, but taxes need to go towards running where we live. So when we look at that and we start splitting our money amongst these different needs of where it's best served or where it needs to be served, it then forces us to really look at our behaviors and what we do and how we deal with money. So if we look at, say, for example, our like a bank account that is parking money aside for expenses, well, what we're saying is we're only going to allow so much money to run the business. Anything more than that, if we need more money than that, it really starts demonstrating one or two things. You're spending too much money on various expenses or whatever. Maybe they're too high, or possibly it could be that you're not charging enough, right? Maybe you're undercharging. But all it is we're just basically, what I'm putting together is a system that the average business person gets, understands, and then giving you the ability to now see the missing pieces of the puzzle, so that at the end of the day, you can start reaching your goals to have a business that serves you and your family. And probably really the whole reason you set it up, so that you could have a better life. Because otherwise you would just, like, honestly, if your business wasn't paying you more and giving you a profit at the end of the day, why wouldn't you just become an employee? There's no risk in being an employee. You turn up, you get paid. Here in Australia, you're going to get 4 weeks holiday leave. You're sick, you're still going to get paid, and you get public holidays. When you run your own business, you don't have that. You've got to make the extra money to then recover that. So it begs the question, why wouldn't any business owner have really good foundations in their business from day dot?
I was doing some research recently on serial entrepreneurs. And a serial entrepreneur who is somebody who's been successful in multiple ventures, they've exited, they've retained money. Also, a serial entrepreneur is somebody who's failed a business at least 66% of the time, and they've succeeded 33% of the time. And the number one focus of these serial entrepreneurs is economics, economy, and utility. And they have one obsession, which is the money. What's happening with the money? And they're absolutely obsessed about where every single dollar goes. Now, they're not greedy people. They're not Scrooge McDuck sitting in their vault swimming around in money. These are just serial entrepreneurs, but they're obsessed about the dollars. And that was the number one factor that came up in the research that separated the people who couldn't become a serial entrepreneur and the ones that do, is they're always looking at the money. And coming back to modeling, if that's what successful people do, don't reinvent the wheel. Just get somebody to show you how the money works and just keep watching it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Simple maths. 1 + 1 is 2. Look at the dollars.
Yeah. If I look at every single business that have failed, it's also trying to remove that when a business is not working, right? The numbers don't stack up. I see a lot of people, they keep going year after year, because they're emotionally invested in something that is failing. And really, I mean, sometimes some businesses don't work out. They're just not worthwhile pursuing. And it's being able to sort of look at that having that emotional intelligence to go, you know what's not working? I've got to do something else, right? Because you just can't be. I see people, they throw, their inheritance, they throw money they get wherever they can get it, straight in this business, and all they're doing is paying off, buying stuff from other people and helping them, but not helping themselves. So yeah, it's emotionally you need to look at it as well. Like some businesses just don't work. Emotionally look at it, take that emotion out. Okay, no, you know what, we've got to can it. We'll do something else that is going to work. And there are, as you said, serial entrepreneurs where they fail 1, 2, 3, 4 times, but they pull out at a point where they're not just completely destroyed. Because if they were completely destroyed, they wouldn't be able to go again.
Mm.
And it's okay to kind of go, I failed a few times, but I'll learn from it. Let's go again. And then, by the fourth venture, it's exploded.
I think you're right. We do buy in emotionally. We find our passion, and we've listened to too much Simon Sinek. Start with why. Why are you doing what you do? That's an illusion. I have 2 businesses down the bottom of where I live, and they're the most boring businesses you could ever imagine. The first business is a dog wash, and people line up to get their dogs washed. The most boring business on the planet, but they don't have to advertise, and people line up to get their dogs washed. On the opposite corner is a coin laundry. And from the day that it went in, the washing machines and the dryers have not stopped spinning.
Mm.
And I look at the guy who owns the coin laundry, and one day he showed up, and he showed up in an electric vehicle, a Kia. Nothing flash, nothing special. The next time I saw him, he rocked up in this big blue convertible Porsche. And I was like, coin laundry in that car's got to be $350,000 at least. And I got talking to him, and I said, what do you do for business? Like, obviously, this isn't the only business that you've got. And he said, no, this is probably one of a couple of dozen that I have. So he's got his coin laundry. And I was talking about the food that he was eating. I said, your food smells great. He said, oh, I also have a central kitchen, and I have these other shops that sell my food. All these boring businesses, but they're turning over money. They were things that people were willing to spend money on. And the next time he showed up in another sports car. I was like, oh my gosh. The lady at the dog wash, she looks absolutely exhausted. And it's not she's exhausted because the business is not working. It's so good that she can't have any time off.
Mm.
But they're just boring businesses, but they've got their money right. Absolutely got their money right. The other businesses around, they might be emotionally charged about them, but that's all it is.
Mm.
It's not a personal flaw in the business owner if the business doesn't work. That's it. There's just no need. Nothing about the individual.
Yeah, that's right. I mean, look, as well, there's definitely a component. I think sometimes as well there is low margins in certain businesses, and if you don't truly understand the business that you're in, there's no room for movement on 1 or 2 mistakes. Hospitality is one of those. Hospitality, now that particularly that a lot of people, when they buy any food at a takeaway restaurant, sit down restaurant, whatever it is, like anything that's got to do with hospitality, people pay with a credit card. And that means there's no room to hide as far as your obligation paying taxes. So previously, if we looked at restaurants, say 10 years ago, where credit cards were still around, but there was still a lot of cash, there was that cash component where, no surprise, I'm sure the ATO knows this anyway, where, they're not paying their fair share of taxes that is based on those sales. So on that basis, that meant their margins were much better. They could, pay better margins. The margins have always been the same. It's just that now you have no room to escape from your taxes, your tax obligations. So if you don't have, once again, really good foundations or even good understanding, especially when those margins are low, about the business you're in, it could that business can tumble and fall over with the simplest of problems that you will exist in business, that will exist in that you'll find that come to business in your business. And once again, that's where, you know, those foundations, they're so important. They can't be ignored.
One final question. What stops people from reaching out and asking for financial help? Not about the money, but about how to structure. What stops them?
The number one, it's the reality, it's the fear, it's that I know I'm going to have to make a change. And with any change, there is a period of unknown uncertainties. And then it's going through that journey, and there is going to be some pain. So, one of my clients, right, he's a tradesman. The wife loves spending money, and, you know, he's creating the work and just never can catch up. And literally in front of me, here they are arguing about this and that. And, you know, if only he would go and get a job, because if he didn't work for himself, we wouldn't have these money problems. It's just being a business owner. It's like, well, no, let's think about the way you handle money. And it was a very uncomfortable 12 months. Now, I think what happens is that people come to me, a lot of people will come to me, and it's going to go one or two ways. It's about 50-50, right? They'll hear me out, they'll listen, it all makes sense. But then what they selectively do is ignore taking the next step. Know what you got to do, but ignore taking the next step. Because we go back to the conversation we were having earlier before we started the podcast. People are comfortable with what they know. So I'll do nothing. But then the other 50%, they will push through. There will be some pain, and then they get through to the other side. They're my believers. They're the ones who are telling, you know, all my other clients, you've got to do this. Yeah, it's gonna suck to start with. It's gonna be horrible. But when you push through and make those changes, it's like a muscle. You just keep building and building, and you get stronger and stronger. And then on the other end, now we have a relationship with our business. Now we're actually, you know, making logical decisions based on what it is we're doing. No, we're not going to carry out, for example, and do that job because we know it's not going to be profitable. We know there's too much risk. We know we're going to be turning up for almost just love, right? You can see now you're aware, but it's going through that process and making these changes. And if I had to say that the number one reason people don't do it is just fear. It's fear of the unknown. And no one likes doing, like, who likes going to the dentist? I hate going to the dentist. I hate sitting there because I know that there's going to be that. You know, I've had a lot of feelings. I didn't floss my teeth when I was younger. I do now every day, like religiously. But you know that, hey, I'm gonna have to deal with that. But if you didn't deal with that, and I tell you, anyone's had a root canal, they're expensive, they're painful, and you know what it is. But like, you go to the dentist because you know it's preventative, and it's the same as, like, you know, getting foundations in your business, like doing profit first, going through the coaching process, looking at your business and having a relationship with your business. Painful to start with, but then once you get used to it and you're in a stronger position, it becomes also much easier.
Well, I totally agree with the dental analogy. Dentists have troubles filling the seat. They have troubles getting patients. And they did a bunch of research into this topic. And they asked themselves, why aren't we getting the amount of patients that we deserve? Is it our competitor? Is it competitive products like different types of toothbrush, electric toothbrushes, mouthwash, different types of toothpaste? It was none of that. It all came down to the patient. 50% of the people who could have gone to the dentist didn't because they didn't want to have to deal with the reality.
Mm.
That was the biggest blocker.
Yeah.
And the same thing, it's just fear. But you get most of us go to the dentist and go, oh, that was a lot easier than I anticipated. And now my breath's good. And my wife's not telling me I got bad breath.
Well, it's funny, when I started, this is probably about 5 years ago, I started flossing every day religiously. Always amazed what comes out of my teeth, right? But it's amazing that preventative, having that process, and that is a foundation, that is a system, that is something I do. It has been preventative to the point where I don't need to get fillings every time. Maybe once every year or 2 years, I was, having the courage, or was that painful in my mouth that I had to go see the dentist and then deal with it. It prevented that stuff, right? And this is the same with business. If we just have some preventative foundations in our business, we won't have those big problems later. I can tell you right now, you don't want to be in a position where you have to liquidate your business because you haven't paid creditors, or you owe the ATO money, you haven't paid your staff their super. It is the worst stress I've ever seen any business go through when they have to go liquidate. It is acknowledgement that you drastically failed, but it's also a smear on your name for the rest of your life. Why would anyone go down that path? No one selectively chooses, and goes, oh, this is where I'm going to end, this is where I want to be. But day by day, we talk about those 1%, day by day, you not doing something, not having a foundation in your business, you are opting for that option, for that smear on your name.
Don't do
And
it.
the question is, do you want the smear on your name? Do you want to be that guy?
I don't want the smear on my undies. I don't want the smear on my name. No, thank you.
I'm glad.
Nathan, thanks for joining us. Where can our guests learn more about the good work that you're doing?
They can go to our website, ngraccounting.com.au. Of course, they can always head over to the YouTube and throw my name in there, the profit generator as well. Instagram, even on the TikTok, where all the young ones hang out. So and the Facebook. But I'm around there. And what I do is I love just posting really short videos and talking about content like this. And it's all about how it's just not always about accounting. Sometimes some tax tips. Sometimes it's also I love talking about business coaching and talking about how you can have a better business that serves you and your life.
I was watching one of your videos the other day. You're off traveling to Las Vegas and you were demonstrating how to get a better exchange rate, the difference between getting the cash exchanged at the mall versus the airport. And I watched that and you're able to save yourself around about $100, which for a business owner, what do we actually have to do to produce $100? We've got to do a lot of work.
Yeah.
So don't waste it. Be smart with it. And it pays to shop around. We always exchange money here in Taiwan before we go to Korea or Thailand. And it just means that we get more out of our holiday.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's a big difference.
Absolutely. The interesting part, just I know one last thing, is that people would say to me, oh, why are you going to Las Vegas? Because I didn't go there with my family. It was just me and a few mates. And having good, strong foundations in my business, I just come back with the answer is because I can. Wouldn't that be great if you're a business owner to say just because I can? And I had the money there saved, that, that is parked there for my enjoyment, my fun, because I can. And you know what? Life needs to be something you enjoy every day, and nothing worse than going, oh, I can't. Change it for
Because I can.
But you got to work towards I can. To say I can.
Nathan, thanks for your time. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Daniel.
Always a pleasure.
Love your work.